Welcome back to another episode of Silent Pals Go to the Movies. This is another Throwback Thursday review. I'm here with my friend Touly. Say hi, Touly.
Hi, everyone.
And today we're going to be reviewing Million Dollar Baby. And just a fair warning, there's going to be spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. A determined woman works with a hardened boxing trainer to become a professional boxer. My first pro is how this movie is not really about boxing, or should I say, it uses the idea of boxing to establish points across. And those points are finding family, chasing dreams, gender equality, and never let people tell you that you can't do something. And the hardest one is when to let go of someone you really care for. And all these points of the movie is using boxing as a vehicle to transport us through the movie, and is showing us all these points of views. But let's get real. The boxing in this movie, some of the scenes are not that great, but it's good enough to get the point across. It's not like it's really choreographed well enough to basically be an accurate boxing movie, but it gives you that Hollywood suspense of movies where she goes in and knocks people out in one round kind of thing, which is good enough for this movie. Next point is the cinematography and how they use the green tint, and also how they use the shadows to illuminate some features of the person. For example, maybe Clint Eastwood is standing half in the shadows and half out of the shadows while he's lurking, and then slowly reveals himself, which kind of like is his personality, that he's trying to hide part of himself, his true self, and just expose something so people can see him. And to the other fact where, for example, when Clint Eastwood is eating food with Maggie, and in his face there's shadows being casted and only his eyes are exposed, and that brings focus into his eyes so we can basically see what he is trying to get us to see from his point of view. And the next point is the cast. We have Clint Eastwood, Hilary Swank, Morgan Freeman. We have Margot Martindale. These are the main actors who create the main characters that sell us the lessons that we see in this movie that are basic to anybody's life or people can relate to. And they do a great job by taking each of the lessons and embodying them and showing us through actions what these lessons are. And especially the narration by Morgan Freeman, it brings the story to life. And also we have other secondary characters that we might know, or some of you might have seen them before. We have Michael Coulter, who plays Luke Cage in the series. We also have Anthony Mackie, who is Falcon. And we also have Michael Pena, who's also been in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So that's a little Easter egg for people who have seen this movie before. My next point is how Clint Eastwood does it all. He can do anything, according to me. In this movie, he directs, produces, acts, and he even wrote the music. So he's kind of the whole package. Plus, this movie to be filmed in 37 days and under budget. I mean, that gives you an idea of how he thinks about movies and how he wraps around them. I mean, he's been doing this for a long time. And this movie won Best Picture of the year, which previous year he did Mystic River, which we reviewed, and it just shyly lost. Now on to my cons. My only cons that I'm going to talk about, if I'm going to be really picky, it could be the length of the movie. I think they could have shortened it to about an hour and 30 minutes, by cutting a little scenes here and there. Some of the scenes did get repetitive, some of the conversation between some actors, but that's just me nitpicking. But my other con is going to be the idea that I would really want to see at the end, Frank's daughter reading the letter which Morgan Freeman has been narrating through the whole movie. Since that's the whole idea of the movie, Frank has been writing to his daughter and getting the letter sent back to him. And I really wish that Morgan Freeman, when he writes what he's talking about throughout the whole movie, the daughter's reading it. And by this point, since I think at the end, Frank did take his life after he helped Maggie and hers, the daughter's reading this letter and basically just thinking, or she would hope that she would have opened the previous letters that he had sent her. So I guess I'm going to pass it on to my friend Touly and see how he saw this movie and what grade he gave the movie.
I agree with Sal in a lot of the points that he made, in that this movie, although it has boxing elements in it, that the movie itself is more about other stuff compared to the boxing itself. Things such as a person's character and how they go about dealing with the sort of hardships that they have encountered and are still experiencing. Sort of situation in which a character played by Hilary Swank displayed, where something as basic as being too old to potentially pursue a dream is something that I feel a lot of us can relate to something like Morgan Freeman's character, where although he may have not been able to achieve his dream, that he is able to encourage people to get back up and keep trying and keep scrapping, as funny as that sounds, because it's the nickname of his character in the film, and to pursue those dreams. So I, for one, really loved the characters in this film and how well they work together. And even though I feel like a character like Morgan Freeman's was more of a supporting role, I really appreciated how big of an impact his supporting role was for the film. And I, for one, would actually treat him as one of the main characters versus just looking at him at a supporting role, because I felt that Hilary Swank's role, as well as Clint Eastwood's role and Morgan Freeman's role, they all served different purposes for the film based on the character that they brought to the table and just their acting prowess. You really felt Clint Eastwood's presence in the way that the movie was presented, because as Sal mentioned, he was the director, and you just got the sense that this was like a Clint Eastwood sort of film, with how the story was developing and how much investment was given to building character, and how each of these characters sort of dealt with either like everyday struggle or challenges, or even like happiness for that matter, how they react to success. And I thought you really got the feeling that this was a Clint Eastwood type of movie. And I can say the same for Morgan Freeman here, with him being the narrator of the film, and Morgan Freeman's voice just being so iconic in the movie industry to the point where it has become pop culture meme and all that stuff. It's no different in this film. I feel like Morgan Freeman and the character that he brought to the table here really put a stamp mark on this film and really elevated the film. And of course, Hilary Swank, who honestly I wasn't too familiar with her before I saw $1 Million Baby when the movie came out back in 2004. But again, just her representing this character who I felt was like an underdog who was trying to strive for something despite her age, her gender, the sort of stigma that would be cast on her, especially obvious from her family, because they did not approve of what she was doing, despite her effort being in good heart and trying to support her family, and then not be appreciative of it and trying to take advantage of her later after what happened in the fight against that, despicable boxer who, again, I thought they did a great job of portraying to get me to dislike, because if I didn't already dislike that particular boxer who Hilary Swank's character went against before their actual match, I ended up despising that character even more. So that's kudos again to Clint Eastwood and his direction of taking that matchup, and how it led to putting a stop to this journey that both Maggie and Frankie were going on, and how much they relied on one another for support. Of course, Maggie being in that sort of daughter role to Frankie, and Frankie being, of course, the fatherly role because of how his situation was with his daughter, and the sort of struggle that Frankie was having communicating and having a healthy relationship with his own biological daughter. You really felt the dynamic between Hilary Swank and Clint Eastwood, alongside with Morgan Freeman's narration and involvement with other characters in the film too. I didn't mention this particular character, but again, Morgan Freeman's character's involvement with the guy, I think his name was Danger, how you knew just from looking at that character that he wasn't going to become a professional boxer anytime soon. But the fact that Morgan Freeman broke through to him and got him to get back up despite what happened in the gym and him getting knocked down by a fellow gym member, and to just keep trying, and hopefully that leads to something, it really sends a positive message, and the sort of thing that I think is really a representation of like a boxing movie or TV show, where it's not necessarily about the losses that comes with a fight, but it's about, if you get knocked down, how are you going to react to that sort of a thing? Are you just going to stay knocked down? Or are you going to get up and get better? It's not necessarily in that particular match, but going forward in your life, how you're going to combat all of these sort of losses and turn them into wins. So I think the movie does a good job at telling that sort of a story in more ways than one, but definitely more about life than boxing itself, and just using boxing as a medium to sort of elevate these sort of things. In terms of what I didn't like about the film, or maybe what I thought the film could have done better at, that. Sal mentioned the length of the film, and I do agree, maybe they could have cut some corners here and there to get to some of the points in a more quicker fashion. For example, if this movie wasn't really going to use boxing as its main attraction to tell the sort of story that it wanted to tell, then I would have probably been okay with showing montages of some of the fights that Maggie went through. I know they did do something like that in the film, but I thought maybe to get to how she was as an amateur to kind of where she got to, they could have done that a little bit more to just get me to understand that, hey, this boxer who Maggie is turning into is really, really ferocious and really good at what she's doing, and could have been done with less of that sort of a build-up versus potentially them focusing more on that final fight and getting more build-up for that, because I feel like if they have done that, they would have made me feel even worse about what happened to Maggie, because they showed scenes where the boxer who Maggie was going to fight in that championship match, you know, how she got away with things. She's like a dirty fighter, but I think maybe they could have done something like a Rocky movie where the build-up could have been a little bit more in that retrospect, so it felt more personal versus, you know, again, all those other fights that were just building up Maggie's reputation in the ranking of boxing like that. I could have done a little less with and more about the very personal fight, which again, with this fighter who she was going to go against as being very dirty and can get away with stuff, I think if they focused a little bit more on that, it would have just got me to feel like an array of emotions when Maggie fell and basically became paralyzed because of the dirty cheap shot that she took. Maybe this is just me being very picky, but I think Frankie being present when Maggie gave the keys to the house that she bought for her mom, it kind of looked kind of awkward to me, from the sense of I felt like that was something very personal between Maggie's character and her family, and for Frankie to just be like standing very nonchalantly despite being a stranger to the family members. Again, it's probably being very, very nitpicky, but you know, when I saw that, I felt like, oh, this is something that should have just transpired maybe initially between Maggie and her family, and then Maggie brings it up to Frankie, and then maybe the next time they meet up with the family, Frankie's sort of there and they kind of notice him and they question, you know, who is that guy sort of ordeal. But that's just me. It doesn't really change that much an opinion about how I feel about the movie, but I just thought it was kind of weird the first time I saw it. But overall, a very good movie. Very different, again, in that primary focus is not on boxing, but rather using boxing as a mean to tell a story about these characters and who they are, how they react to certain situations, and how they deal with them. Love the movie. I would recommend it if you guys haven't seen it. And in terms of its score, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10.
Yes, I totally agree with what you've said, especially like when you reference the character Danger. Even though he's not a very important character in the movie, we can call him a side character. He basically represents what everybody needs to know in life. You put everything you have, your goals or something, but just in case you fail your first time, like Morgan Freeman told him, you get up. You don't let one fight or one loss dictate your future. You basically just take it and you stand back up and you continue to train and learn from your mistakes. And that's not just a boxing lesson, that's just a life lesson in general. So all these characters embodied a lesson that everybody can get behind of, and that makes this movie stand out even more. Just the same way Touly saw this movie, I think it's a great movie. I would highly recommend it to people if they haven't seen it. Yes, the end, it catches you by surprise, but life does that sometimes. It just throws curveballs at you. Baseball reference there, but not a boxing reference. But it's just the same thing. It's like something you have to roll with. My grade for the movie is going to be an 8.5 out of 10. So I guess that does it for this review of $1 Million Baby. Please join us next time when we are going to review Dogma.
I've been going to church my whole life, and I've never heard of a 13th apostle named Rufus.
Yeah, but you heard of the other 12 apostles. Yeah, all white boys, I might add, but no mention of me, Rufus. And why is that? 'Cause I'm a black man. But you know what? That's just my pet peeve.
Please like, comment, and subscribe. You can find our social media links below. And like always, keep watching movies.